Good morning. I hope everybody that listens is keeping well. Wanted to read a couple of paragraphs and comment. I have to say, I am not a specialist in anything. I am definitely not trying to change your mind or convince you of anything. This is just food for thought. Yes, there are many theories out there, many religions out there. Just choose whatever suits you. I am following Sophia Paranesis, Philosophia Paranesis, that, it's this philosophy that there's a connection between everything. If you start, by, understanding, if you start by processing and understanding, eventually you will find that there's a common thing to everything. Yes, that's Sophia Paranis. Something is connecting everything, like the string of the necklace that holds all the pearls. There's a string, connecting everything. That's Sophia Paranis. So the title of this text is Gradation, Evolution, and Reincarnation. Gradation in the sense of successive changes, evolution in the sense of gradual development, and reincarnation, in the sense of that part that is transcendent. The universe, in my opinion, is magnetic fields. Yes, these magnetic fields, it's something that you can't grab. It's something that you are not going to be able to count and measure. These magnetic fields, they are in constant change, and they always seek balance through pressure mechanics, through pressure mediation. Yeah. These magnetic fields are like a beautiful mirage. They are an emanation. They are like a holographic emanation of the logos, of the divine. Yes. And it's not a creation, it's an emanation. And it's quite beautiful. It exists exactly as it should. There's no other way. It exists. It's not a faulty creation. It's not an accident. It's not some evil guy behind that as plans or whatever. No, this is purely um, uh, an emanation from something or someone that's definitely not sentient. Not sentient. Plotinus and many others have said this. The one, the monad, from which everything emanates, is not sentient. Yeah. Why is this important? Because it eliminates this idea of creation. Yeah. Creationism therefore eliminates the idea of morality and duality. Okay? Creationism, duality, and morality are, uh, should I say, feminine ways of controlling things. It's the feminine path of controlling things. So, organized religion is all about creationism, it's all about dualities and the tyranny of morality. It is police thought, it is behavior policing, it is, um, you know, tyranny, basically. Okay, I'm going to start reading. Oh, before, proponents of this magnetic field, universe are, of course, James Clerk Maxwell, Ken Wheeler, Walter Russell, Charles Proteus Steinmetz and Nikola Tesla are actually the ones who put it into practice, you know, and so on and so on. The so-called conflicts of religion and science are, for the most part, the result of mutual misunderstanding of their respective terms and range. Has to range, one deals with the why of things, the other with their how. One with intangibles, the other with things that can be measured, whether directly or indirectly. Okay, um, in this magnetic universe, there's also phenomena, of course. Phenomena, i.e., matter, is the only thing that can be measured. It's the only thing that can be ruled by math, okay? But it's not the entirety of the universe. That's like 1%. The rest is just magnetic fields, you know. The question of terms is important. At first sight, the notion of a creation completed in the beginning seems to conflict with the observed origin of species in temporal succession. But in the beginning does not mean with respect to a period of time, but also in principle, that is, in the ultimate source logically rather than temporally prior to all secondary causes, and no more before than after the supposed beginning of their operation. So, in the beginning, once upon a time, is not talking about a specific date where things started. No, it's talking about in principle and in attribute. It's not talking about first cause. No, there's no such thing as first cause, because everything is an emanation. So there's no beginning and no end to it, okay? There's no beginning and no end to it. Therefore, it's not a creation. It's a principle. There's no prima causa. So, as Dante says, neither before nor after was God's moving on the face of the waters. And Philo of Alexandria, at that time indeed all things took place simultaneously, but a sequence was necessarily written into the narrative because of their subsequent generation from one to another. And Jacob Boehme, it was an everlasting beginning. The eternal birth of Christ, that's what they are talking about. The eternal birth. And as Aristotle says, eternal beings are not in time. God's existence is, therefore, now. The eternal now that separates past from future durations, but is not itself a duration, however short. Therefore, in Meister Eckhart's words, God is creating the whole world now, this instant. Again, no sooner has some time elapsed, however little, but everything is changed. You cannot dip your feet twice in the same waters. So then, as for Jalaluddin Rumi, every instant thou art dying and returning. Muhammad hath said that this world is but a moment. Every moment the world is renewed. Life is ever arriving anew like the stream. The beginning, which is thought, eventuates in action. Know that in such wise was the construction of the world in eternity. Okay, let's make a pause. There's no past, there's no future, there's just the now. Everything is a constant now. It's an eternal birth. Every time there's a child being born, right? The world is renewing. The eternal birth of Christ. That's what they mean. That Christ is eternal, the eternal birth. It's always renewing. Every time there's a person being born to the world, it's a constant renewal. There's no past, there's no future. And I just read, these Christian mystics, okay? Christian mystics, the early ones at least, like Aristotle, Jacob Boehme, Meister Eckhart, Rumi, what's his name, Dante, Philo of Alexandria. They were all Christian mystics, and they all had something in common. What was it? The Enneads of Plotinus, yes. They all had the Enneads of Plotinus under their pillow. They were all occultists or pagans, okay? But these are nonsensical words, nonsensical terms. They are just a pejorative terms, a derogative term, to exclude, to, discard people who are not of the Abrahamic dogma. All right. Let's continue. In all this, there is nothing to which the natural science can object. He may indeed reply that his interest is confined to the operation of mediate causes, and that it does not extend to questions of a first cause or the whatness of life, but that is simply a definition of his self-chosen field. The self-chosen field of the modern scientist is the study of phenomena. They study phenomena. They study the result of actions. Yes. That is a fool's errand, in my opinion, because the now is in constant change. Why are they studying the result of actions and phenomena if it's in constant change? For example, today you took a blood sample and there's a result. I don't know, a couple of weeks from now, you will do the same blood sample and it will show different results. Unless you are suffering from a chronic thing, If you are suffering from something chronic, it is, the same, right? It stays the same until you get out of the chronic state. But if you are a healthy person, today, your blood sample is going to say something, and tomorrow is going to say something else different. Okay? It's a fool's errand. Studying phenomena and the results of actions, it's an obsession of the scientists and of religions and of, the establishment, why they want to predict the future. That's why they study it, because they just can't live with the idea that this universe, is happening now, and it's uncontrollable. It's uncontrollable, unpredictable. It's this eternal renewal, and it's never the same as yesterday. You cannot dip your feet in the same waters twice. The water that was yesterday is completely different from the water. That's the beauty of this universe. Religions and the establishment, they try to, convince you that it's not that way. Because what? They seek control. They seek control over you because they want something out of you, right? Your attention, your energy, your imagination, your everything. They seek to control everything that you are. It's an obsession, obsessive compulsive behavior. Anyway, the ego is the only content of the self that can be known objectively, and therefore the only one that he is willing to consider. His concern is only with behavior. You see, the modern scientist only focuses on the ego because what? It's the only thing that can be known objectively, right? And he is only concerned with its behavior. Why? Because he wants to predict its behavior. All of these search engines and whatnot, they are like a schizophrenic, personality. They want to what? Predict your behavior, predict what you like, you know. So eventually it becomes an echo chamber. Some 10, 15 years ago, the search engines would take you places. Now they only take you to the echo chamber, you know. They are mapping your preferences and just feeding you, what you want to create dopamine, to create an echo chamber. That's egotistic. All right, let us continue. Empirical observation is always of things that change. That is, of individual things or classes of individual things, of which, or as all philosophers are agreed, it cannot be said that they are, but only that they become or evolve. The physiologist, for example, investigates the body, and the psychologist, the soul or individuality. All right, the psychologist, the soul or individuality. The psychologist, in the beginning, psychologist in Greek meant psyche, the soul, and ologist, the study, or the subject of study, or a branch of knowledge. So, psychologist was someone who studied the soul, right? But nowadays, the psychologist is more someone who studies the ego, right? Individuality or the ego. So that the past they study the soul, in the future they only study the ego, and that's it. The latter is perfectly aware that the continued being of individualities is only a postulate. Again, it's only a postulate, convenient and even necessary for practical purposes, but intellectually untenable. They know this. They know that the personality changes. I've talked to this in the previous audio. Our personality changes. Our consciousness that has a beginning and an end in time changes every 20 years, I would say. You become an entirely different person unless you are sick, unless you don't have a soul, like, psychopaths and stuff. They don't change. But I'm talking about healthy people, humans. They know this, that people change. And in this respect, he is in complete agreement with the Buddhist, who is never tired of insisting that the body and soul with a small s, okay? The body and soul, when he says soul with a small s, he's talking about that person that is in the street and looks around and he's alone and he's like, I see no soul around me. I see nobody around me. He's talking about the small soul, small s, that soul that has a beginning and an end in time, commonly known also as consciousness. Yes. Sometimes, translators get lost in these terms. You have to be very careful. So, insisting that body and soul are compositive and changeable, and therefore wholly mortal, are not myself. So the body and consciousness, and I'm not, when I say consciousness, I'm talking about the brain. Yes, I'm talking about the that thing that has a beginning and an end in time. If I want to talk about the what's transcendent, then I would say the mind, the Spiritu Santo, the Atman, you know. But consciousness or soul with a small s is talking about that thing that has a beginning and an end in time. Sometimes, again, like I said, people get these things confused. Okay, where was I? Not the reality that must be known if we are to become what we are. In the same way that St. Augustine points out that those who saw that both of these, the body and the soul, are mutable, have sought for what is immutable and found God. So what he's saying is learn the difference, between body and soul with a small s, yes, and once you understand that they are mutable, you then learn that there's an immortal essence, something beyond what you see in the mirror, that man with a big M sitting in your heart, not man with a small m, the man of God, the man with a big M sitting in your heart, of whom the Upanishads declare that art thou. Again, when you look in the mirror and you learn the difference between the physical and the spiritual, that thou art is when you realize the existence of the immortal essence, and that's reincarnation or transmigration, which I will read about in a moment. So theology, accordingly, coinciding with orthology, prescinds or detaches itself from all that is emotional to consider only that which does not move. So, what does not move? The spirit. The spirit is always the same. What moves is the physical. It's in constant movement, in constant change, and it's never the same. The thing that does not move is the inner man, the one sitting in your heart. He does not move. Change and decay is all around, I see. O thou who changes not. O thou who changes not. He's talking about the one that changes, does not change. It finds him in that eternal now, what always separates the past from the future, and without which these paired terms would have no meaning whatsoever. The paired terms is talking about the pairs of opposites, right? The pair of opposites that come together and perpetuate this repetition. The union of opposites, male and female, yin and yang, the pair of opposites that come together and are in constant change. Just as space would have no meaning were it not for the point that distinguishes the here from there. And here comes the notion of space. Of course, the particle scientists, took space like the Holy Grail. Space is just to distinguish the here from the there. Space is the absence of the ether. Ether, for instance, a crude analogy, when light hits an object, or should I say illumination hits an object, it creates a shadow. That shadow is space. It's the negative image of the ether. Okay? It's the negative image of the ether. And we use it conventionally to distinguish the here from the there. So we use it conventionally, this thing called space, but it's not really a thing, you know. We use it conventionally, like numbers, or we use it conventionally, but they don't really exist. Like I said in the beginning, the whole universe is not ruled by mathematics. No, that's just used conventionally to count and measure. Uh, a moment without duration, point without extension. These are the golden mean, and inconceivably straight away leading out of time into eternity, from death to immortality. Our experience of life is evolutionary. What evolves? Evolution is reincarnation, the death of one and the rebirth of another in momentary continuity. Who reincarnates? Metaphysics precedes or detaches itself from the animistic proposition of Descartes. Animistic in the sense that, like children give a soul to an object, to a chair or to an animal, or, and they start talking, animating, these imaginary objects like children. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. No. You see, in the time of Descartes, it was the time of materialistic science. It's when the Aristotelian, again, Aristotle was a Christian mystic, and he kind of gave birth to material counting and measuring science. Yeah, that's him, the source. And at the time of Descartes, they completely eliminated the spiritual. So when they say, I think, therefore I am, he's eliminating the transcendent. He's a humanist. He's an atheist. He's denying the existence of the soul. He's denying the existence of the self, of the immortal essence. Is denying the existence of Spiritus Sanctum, of the Atman. Is denying the existence of that though art. He's denying that. So when he says, I think, therefore I am, he's talking from the viewpoint of an atheist. An atheist is someone that denies the puppet master. An atheist only, accepts the existence of the puppet, and there's no puppeteer behind. There's no transcendent, moving things and passing from life to life, from body to body. He denies all of that. So let's continue. The proposition of Descartes is cogito ergo sum, to say cogito ergo est. And to the question, quid est, answers that this is an important question because its subject is not a what amongst others, but the whatness of them all and of all that they are not. I think, therefore I am. I think, therefore there is that which I think. I think, therefore thou art. Okay, let's continue. This part here is a bit confusing because he just used, the negative theology, and to go into that, I will need, I think I made audios in the past about negative theology. That's what most people just get lost, especially Christian mystics. They hate negative theology. Anyway, Reincarnation, as currently understood to mean the return of individual souls to other bodies here on earth, is not an orthodox Indian or Platonic doctrine, but only a popular belief. So, for example, Dr. B.C. Law remarks, "It goes without saying that the Buddhist thinker repudiates the notion of the passing of an ego from one embodiment to another. We take our stand with Sri Shankaracharya when he says, 'In truth, there is no other transmigrant but the Lord, he who is both transcendently himself and the immanent self in all beings, but never himself becomes anyone,' for which there could be cited abundantly authority from the Vedas and the Upanishads. If then we find Sri Krishna saying to Arjuna and the Buddha to his mendicant, 'Long is the road that we have trodden, and many are the births that you and I have known,' the reference is not to the plurality of essences, but the common man with a big M, the Atman, in every man, who is most man and has forgotten himself, but in the reawakened has reached the end of the road, and having done with all becoming, is no longer a personality in time, no longer anyone, no longer one of whom one can speak by a proper name. You can no longer point, look, there's John, that's Mary. No, you can no longer point to that and say that's a personality. No, it's just the Atman. Anyway, I'm sorry if this has taken too long. 33 minutes almost. I'm sorry. So, quick side notes. Krishna. All right, I said something about Krishna. Krishna is Christ. Okay? At the Council of Nicaea, the crazy people that wasn't right in the head, they picked up all the popular books and smashed it all together. They created this thing called the Bible, and Krishna is Christ. Everything about the mythology of Christ, you see, you have to understand, there's Christ and the things that Christ talk about, and then there's the religion made about Christ. These are two distinct things. So Christianity is about Christ. It's not about what Christ said. No, it's about, this imaginary mythological mashup of many, books and that gave birth to Christ. Christ is Krishna. Yeah. Everything, the walking on water, the miracles, and the way he died, and all those things is repeated in the life of Krishna. Okay? The same mythology. Jesus is a druid god, or was a druid god. Yasus was a druid god. So they kind of mashed things together and boom, created this thing. Of course, back then, everybody thought they were crazy. You guys are crazy. You guys are mixing everything together. And the first council of Nicaea was mainly composed of people that wasn't well in the head. The second council formed, to denounce that, hey guys, you're crazy. What are you doing? And then there was a third council, and then there was a fourth council. There was 4 or 5 councils of Nicaea, Everybody, especially the Coptics, was against this thing. But, Constantine was, I want to do this. I really want to create, an illusion to bind people together, because the empire was multiple, cultures and multiple religions and whatnot. He thought, like any other tyrant, if I could make them all follow the same religion, it will stop all conflict. He was wrong. It created even more conflict, you know, because the nature of this, stuff, this bullshit that they created is dualistic. It's moralistic. It just creates conflict. It's based on the ego. It's based on the deadly, on envy, jealousy, policing your thoughts, censoring censoring the free speech, and it's all based on that. So it created more division. You see. Anyway, I'm sorry that took too long. Oh, another thing. At the end of the the fifth, I don't know how many of these councils they had, there was this crazy emperor, self-proclaimed emperor. He said, okay, Christianity is going to be a thing. And they were like, no, no, it's not going to be a thing. All right. He called the guards and they were all unalived. They unalived everybody that was against it. And then he asked, who's opposing me now? And everybody just shut up, I don't know the name of the so-called emperor. There's a book about it. I bought the book. It's really interesting. It is very, very detailed. So yeah. All right. I think I'm going to shut up now. Have a nice day.